Hey everyone, welcome back to Noiseberry Games. Today I'm going to be talking about a new game called High on Life 2. This game was released on February 13th, 2026. Its regular price is $77.99 Canadian, or your regional equivalent, and is developed and published by Squanch Games. And I just want to say thank you very much to Squanch Games for providing me with the review code for this game. They also gave me an affiliate link for this game, so if you like the look of it and want to check it out for yourself, please click the link in the description, because I'll just tell them that you found the game from my video. As you'd expect from the title, this is a direct sequel to High on Life 1. Now, I put in a request for this game, didn't expect to get it at all, because it's quite a premium game, and so I was very surprised when they did indeed send me a review code for it. And I'd actually played a bit of the first High on Life when it first came out, and I think I bounced off it about 3 hours in or something, just wasn't loving the gameplay. And so when I got the review code for High on Life 2, I was like, I should really play the first one. So reinstalled the first game, played it through all the way. That took me, I think it was just under 10 hours to play the first game. Enjoyed it far more this time. It was not even close to bouncing off it. I don't know, just at a different point in my life, I guess. I just quite enjoyed the first one. Finished it up, hopped right into High on Life 2, and I'm glad I did because, yeah, you really do need to be familiar with the events of the first game. As you'd expect, with it being a sequel, it very much follows on from the first game. The whole tutorial section of High on Life 2 it's very clever, very, very interactive. Not only does it teach you the controls, which, again, I was very familiar with because about 20 minutes previously I'd been playing the first game, but it also recaps some of the events from the first game. It demonstrates how much time has passed since the first game, and once you're done the tutorial and starting up High on Life 2, you're even able to explore a museum exhibit that also serves as a very, very clever way of recapping the events of the first game. So probably very obvious that you should play High on Life before you play High on Life 2, but yeah, just wanted to start off with that. It's very much worth playing the first game. In the first High on Life, you play as a bounty hunter. You are a human, and basically this evil group called the G3 cartel lands on Earth, and you and your sister escape in your house to an alien planet, and you hook up with a former bounty hunter, and you become a new bounty hunter and start taking down the G3 cartel. So by the end of the first game and at the start of the second game, you are the world's, a universe-renowned bounty hunter who is obviously very famous for having taken down the G3 cartel. Your sister doesn't do too much in the first game, but between the first and second game, she joins up with a renegade group of vigilantes who are trying to do good for the world and the universe, basically. But she ends up, right at the start of the game, she ends up getting a bounty put on her. So, as a bounty hunter, you pretty much have to take her bounty in order to save her. You know that everybody else, all the other bounty hunters in the world, are going to be gunning for her because she has a really high bounty on her head. So you take the bounty, you meet up with her, and you end up killing a bunch of the other bounty hunters. And from that point on, you're no longer known as the bounty hunter, you're known as the outlaw because you've broken bounty hunter code, and you and your sister are on the run. However, just like the first game, there's still an evil organization. Instead of the G3 cartel, the whole point of the G3 cartel was they wanted to sell humans on the black market to other aliens, so the other aliens could smoke humans and get high on them. In High on Life 2, the evil organization is called Pharmaceuticals, and they want to do kind of a similar thing to the G3 cartel, but they want to turn humans into drugs, into a drug called Humanzapro. And so they want to basically legalize turning humans into pills. And so in the first game, where you were slowly taking out high-ranking members of the G3 cartel, in the second game, you're taking down high-ranking members associated with Pharmaceuticals. So one of the first ones you take down is a politician who's been basically doing PR work for Pharmaceuticals. You take down high-ranking targets. So the structure of the game is quite similar to the first one. You can choose which bounty or which target you want to go after. You go do that mission, and then once you come back to it, a couple of hours, or sorry, once you've beaten it, a couple of hours later, you come back to your hub. In the first game, this was your house. In the second game, it's a space arcade. You do a little recap, you get a little bit of money, and then you can choose your next target. And that's really the structure of the game, and I found it very, very fun. The first game, like I said, took me just under 10 hours. High on Life 2 took me 13 hours to finish. That was definitely not 100%. I think I got 38% of the achievements. I got 12 out of 31 achievements. So not a particularly thorough playthrough, just kind of the main story. That was really it. As the bounty hunter and the outlaw now, you have these talking guns as your weapons. There's a race of aliens called Gatlians, which are these talking guns, and they're pretty funny, they're pretty cool, they're a fun gimmick that basically all your communication is done through these talking guns. In the first game, you had 4 guns. You had Kenny the pistol, you had Gus the shotgun, you had Sweezy the SMG kind of thing, and you had Creature, who launched little Pikmin kind of things. Your roster is slightly different in the second game. You do not have Kenny, because Kenny was voiced by Justin Roiland in the first game. Justin Roiland obviously left Squanch Games, I think in like 2023, something like that. So Justin Roiland's voice acting was all over the first game, and was probably quite a large part of the appeal of the first game, especially because in the first game, you are constantly seeing TVs everywhere, which will be running, news shows, interviews, commercials, and like the majority of them are all voiced by Justin Roiland. They're his sense of humor, his very, very improv style of comedy, which I quite enjoy. So instead of recasting Kenny the gun, he's just gone completely. When you start up the second game, you've only got Sweezy and Gus, and I was like, oh, I don't have Kenny, and nobody's mentioning him. I wonder if we're gonna have like a dramatic reintroduction to him. And then like 3 hours in, I looked it up, I was like, oh, no, Justin Roiland's just not in the game at all. Kenny's just not in the game at all. Nobody talks about him. What's kind of weird is that later in the game, like maybe about halfway through, you do get another gun, another pistol, who has basically the exact same properties as Kenny did, but he's just a completely different gun now, a completely different character. So I guess they realized they did kind of need Kenny's utility, but they just didn't want to bring Kenny back and recast him. He was replaceable, I guess, which was sad because I did think he was one of the best parts of the first game, and he did have quite a substantial amount of character growth in the first game. So yeah, a little bit sad that Kenny is not in the second game. One of the other new guns you get is an assault rifle called Sheath, and as soon as he started talking, I was like, I'm sure I recognize that voice. And he's voiced by Ralph Ineson, who you might not be familiar with the name, but I feel like if you hear the voice, you'd probably recognize him. I recognize him from Chernobyl, and also a British detective show called Ludwig. So yeah, I was very, very excited when I heard his voice, and I used him for most of the game, because when you're talking to people, whichever gun you've got out will kind of respond for you. And I just liked hearing his voice, so I kept him out of most of the time. Movement is quite similar to the first game. In the first game, you eventually unlocked a jetpack, and you could fly up into the sky and dash in the sky, and eventually you'd run out of fuel and you'd have to drop down. But that was a pretty important way of getting around. In the second game, you don't get a jetpack at all, but you do get a skateboard as your primary way of moving. So the levels are quite a bit larger in High on Life 2, and you will pretty constantly be using your skateboard to get around very quickly. Like one of the main areas is this city, and it is pretty big. If you're trying to like walk on foot to one end of it, it'll take you quite a while. but you can actually just skateboard and grind rails and stuff like that. The movement is very, very satisfying. When I first unlocked the skateboard, I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. It feels like a little bit too fast-paced, especially because you're trying to do combat when you first unlock it. But yeah, but by the time I was like, I don't know, 20% of the way through the game, I was like, the skateboard's great. Big fan of it. Feels great to move around and grind on rails and do tricks and stuff. Justin Roiland isn't the only voice actor gone from the second game. Your sister Lizzie was actually recast. I don't know why she was recast. Her voice actor in the first game wasn't amazing, but I found her performance quite charming, I guess. I did quite like the sister in the first game. Her voice is pretty different in the second game, which is quite surprising. She's got a far bigger role in the second game, so maybe that's why they recast her, because they thought maybe the voice actress from the first game wouldn't quite be able to manage a bit more of a dramatic role. She's good. She's the new voice actress is definitely very good. It was just, yeah, a little bit sad again to notice that another voice was gone. The graphics are a massive step up from the first game. I'll put a little comparison of two of the guns side by side here, and I think you'll be kind of blown away at how good this game looks, and it really, really does look good. The first game looked fine, a bit more stylized, I guess. High on Life 2 is still very, very stylish for sure, but it's got a little bit more of a realism, and the graphics look fantastic. That obviously comes at a cost. I started as, I start every game with any kind of upsampling or upscaling or whatever, like DLSS, disabled just to see, I don't know, how well my PC can raw dog a game, I guess. And it was fine during the tutorial bits, learning the new controls or relearning the controls. But very early on, you arrive at a zoo, and there's a ton of people there for a protest saying like humans should be protected, they don't belong in cages. And like as soon as I got there, frame rate just plummeted down to like, I think it was like just above 60. I think I was like about 70 or something. And I've got a very, very strong PC. I've got an RTX 5090 in here. And I was like, I feel like I should be getting better than this. So I went into the settings and turned on DLSS, like balance, just to clean up the picture a little bit. And I tried turning on the NVIDIA frame generation. And this is the first game I've ever actually had to use frame generation in. And it was like 4 different options. It was like frame generation 2, 3, 4, or auto. And I was like, I'll just stick it on auto, see what it does. I was blown away at how impactful frame generation is. Like I said, first game I've really had to use it. And in this quite busy scene, I went from like 70 FPS up to like 160 FPS. And pretty much for the rest of the game, I was mostly just sitting at like 180 FPS, maybe down to like 150 at like really, really intensive moments, but it made a huge difference. So yeah, frame generation, if your card can do it, whew, pretty good. When you start up the game for the first time, it loads all the shaders, like it pre-compiles the shaders, which is fantastic. I always love when a game does that, because then you're not getting shader compilation stutter as you're playing through the game. Like whenever you see a new shader for the first time, if it didn't pre-compile the shaders, it would stutter while it loads it, and then the next time you see it, it would be loaded into the system already, so you won't get the stutter. But if you pre-compile shaders, you avoid the stutter altogether. So far prefer pre-compiling shaders. It mostly works, but every time you close the game and then reopen it again, it will like pre-compile, I guess recompile the shaders. Yeah, every time you start the game up again, it'll load all the shaders much faster than the very first time it does it, but it still does reload all of them every time you start the game, and I'm not really sure why. So yeah, every time you start the game, it still only takes like about 30 seconds to get into the game, I think, but it is weird it does it every time you start the game. I was purposely staying on an older NVIDIA graphics driver because the video editing program I use is broken on anything newer than the driver I was using, which was from November, I believe. And when I started High on Life 2, it gave me a warning pop-up and said that your driver's too old and you might have problems. I was like, crap, I've finally got to update my graphics drivers. So I did. It still broke my editing program, so I actually had to buy a whole new version of the editing program just to get around this, so that was annoying, but at least I'm on up-to-date graphic drivers now. At launch, this was a very, very, very buggy game. On February 19th, it got a hotfix, which seems to have fixed the problems I was having before it was patched, but I played for about 3 hours before this hotfix patch, and it was really unstable. About half an hour into the game, I got some kind of bug where I was launched up into the sky, and I landed in a part of the zoo area that I wasn't supposed to be in, and I was running all the way around, and my tracking marker would tell me to go through this gate. Couldn't open the gate or anything. There were invisible walls around all the walls, so I couldn't hop over the gate or anything like that. And I looked it up, and I was like, oh, there was something that was supposed to spawn in this little area that I was launched out of. Couldn't make my way back into this area. I think I was in like a completely different part of the zoo. It was very strange. And the only way to fix this was to start the game from scratch. So I was about half an hour in, and I had to just erase that save file and start again. And that was crazy. Like, if that had happened like 2 hours in or something, I think I probably would have just recorded a rant and not played the rest of the game. So I think they did try to address some of these issues where you just get completely soft locked in this hotfix. Nothing happened. I didn't get any error like that since the first half hour of the game, but very, very worrying. I was kind of the whole time a little bit on edge that something like that would happen again. Towards the end of the 3 hours, I was trying to make my way onto a cruise ship, and there was just something about this part that I would crash. My game would crash every 2 to 3 minutes. It would say some kind of like Unreal Engine fatal error, and these crashes were pretty significant. The first time it just crashed the game, whatever. I think the second time it crashed my graphics drivers or something, because it completely crashed the game as well as OBS, my video recording program. I think the fourth time it crashed, it actually blue screened my computer, which was when I was like, okay, I probably should not play this anymore until this is fixed. And then luckily, they released the February 19th patch, and that did completely solve the fatal error crash I was having. I'm surprised I was able to get about 3 hours in without getting this error, and then once I reached a certain point of the game, I just wasn't able to progress further at all until it was patched, but it has been patched. It really was released in a dire state. I don't know how it was released when it was, because it really did need some more work, but it does seem more stable now. I think there are still people getting crashes after that hotfix, which is unfortunate. But like I said, I did not have any issues since that patch. There's one more thing I did want to rant about, and I've left it for towards the end because it's like mild spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers at all, this is really mild. Click off now. But the end of the game it's pretty much right before the final boss fight. You have to do a trial in court. And bear in mind that my total playtime for the game was 13 hours. I went back and looked at the video footage for this courtroom scene where you're just sitting there listening to basically all the characters talking. You have some slight input. You get to choose a couple of dialogue options. You get to choose what witnesses you want to call. So you're really just clicking an option every once in a while. Total playtime was 13 hours. I went and looked at the footage for how long this courtroom scene was. 45 minutes. I was blown away. It felt really long when I was playing through it. And when I timed it out, and it was, I mean, the length of, 2 Rick and Morty episodes, I was shocked at how long it was. That should have been about half the length. It was, still somewhat entertaining, but it really was just sitting and listening to people talk for 45 minutes. I couldn't believe that was close to the end of the game. I couldn't believe that was something they didn't think they needed to trim down a bit. So that was kind of shocking. I just wanted to mention that just at the end of this video. So overall, I really enjoyed this game. I prefer the first game a little bit more, I think, but High on Life 2 is a very good game if you enjoy that kind of humor. It's very fourth wall breaking, very, you know, it doesn't take itself seriously at all. It's a fun game. Combat was really satisfying. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. I would maybe wait for a couple more patches, but as I said earlier, if you're interested in the game, I would click the link in the description just to go check it out. Even if you don't buy it, I think it still does me good if people click the link. Thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!